Jesus Christ.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another album review. And in this video I'm going to review Long Ambients 2 by Moby. This one is the second installment of the Long Ambient series, which, as the title suggests, it's about long ambient pieces of music. His first long ambient album, Calm Sleep, was a huge and really ambitious ambient album with tracks that were going for about 20 or 25 minutes long, with the biggest one going for 35 minutes long, and the album in its entirety was 11 songs going for 4 hours. Yeah, we're talking about an extremely ambitious album for Moby, but it's an album that for its style and its whole sense of progression, it fits the most to be that long. We're talking about extremely minimal pieces, and the whole purpose and the aesthetic of them was to be really, as the title suggests, calm and sleepy, being a really good set of songs for background music or for when you just want to go to sleep. This is a really soft and soothing and relaxing album for these particular cases if you want something really cool and relaxing. And with the title of the album being Long Ambients 1, it shows that there's going to be a second part eventually, and this is that time, 3 years later. Moby for me as an artist is hit or miss with a really long and diverse discography, his ideas feeling really well executed and some of them being some of the most important in the history of electronic music, especially on the mainstream. For me, Play is one of those albums that I grew up with it. It has a really special spot in my heart and it's one of my favorite albums of all time. But then as time passed by, after the release of the also critically acclaimed 18, Moby's legacy as a musician started fading away. Moby nowadays is more known as this figure on social media that is constantly whining with Donald Trump's presidency, or that has to do with just veganism and how the world would be a better place if everyone in this world would be vegan. Of course, without having any issue with what kind of personality he shows on social media. This is also something that comes out with some of his later releases as well. The 2016 album These Systems Are Failing, featuring the Void Pacific Choir, was mostly an anti-trap album but also mentioning other major social issues, and it was also a real change of direction musically. Even though I really like this album, this idea could not be that well executed for the second time. More fast songs about the apocalypse was an even more direct anti-trap album, and it felt more of like a piece of just frustration and anger rather than an album that would mostly focus on music and musical ideas. And this is a thing that made lots and lots of albums from Moby to just pass unnoticed. Last year's album Everything Was Beautiful and Nothing Hurt was a great album for Moby's career in my opinion, but no one talked about it because no one nowadays seems to care about Moby's music, and this one went unnoticed, and it's kind of unfortunate. Now, right at the same year where Moby released These Systems Are Failing with the Void Pacific Choir, Moby also released Long Ambients 1 Calm Sleep, an album that was obviously not as much promoted and not a lot of people give it a lot of attention, especially when we're talking about an album that is 4 hours long, and this probably put a lot of people off. But those who heard it felt like this was actually one of the best Moby projects for a long time. Now, if you're looking for something really calm and relaxing, I think this is the album for you. This is a perfect album to just put at night and just let it play in the background. Moby knows very well how to create songs with strong emotions, passion and atmosphere. But going further into this, looking at some of the musical compositions and ideas, it feels like a really bland and uninteresting ambient album. There are some great moments, some of those that feel like you're listening to an extended beautiful Moby song, one that has this sort of beautiful melancholic atmosphere to it, something that appeals to albums like Play and 18. But most of the ideas felt surprisingly flat and uninteresting and boring. And the issue is not that the songs were dragging for such long period of time, but it's that the ideas presented on these tracks are not that much interesting to drag for such a long period of time. But even if there were just interludes of just 1 or 2 minutes long, they would still be the forgettable moments of the album. Moby does the exact same thing once again with long ambients too. Now what's kind of the difference here is that we're talking about even longer ambient pieces, going for 30 minutes long or even more, with the biggest one being LA12, which is 47 minutes long. And we're talking about an album that suffers from the same issues. Yes, it's minimal, but LA12 is possibly the same thing for about 47 minutes. But like I said, this is not my issue. But we're still talking about not one of my favorite moments of the album. It's the same monotone synth melody. It's like there's not even like sort of a switch or something more memorable to like a melody of it. It's a nice piece for sleep, but if you're going to just see it from another perspective, musically there's not that much to it in order to just make me come back to it even as a sort of piece for background music. But don't get me wrong, I think that Long Ambients 2 still has some really good moments that truly show the beauty and the atmosphere that Moby can portray in such long pieces of music. LA13, for example, is a beautiful piece of music going for 27 minutes long. Yes, we're talking about the same minimal monotone thing, but I love the synths, I love the melodies to it. The other highlight for me is LA15 going for 32 minutes long. And I will say that these two pieces individually make for some of my favorite pieces of long ambience, because there were not really that many moments from Long Ambients 1 that really grabbed my attention. But at least in this one we have less songs, but we have more intriguing moments. Of course, there are other moments like LA14 and LA16 that feel really boring and unimaginative for me. They still suffer from some of the elements that I didn't like from Long Ambience 1. They feel flat, they feel sort of bland, generic and boring, especially for going for something that long in a period of time. But yeah, other than that, it's a really minimal album that it doesn't have that many things to just comment for each track individually or anything else to just mention other than that. I like that songs like LA16 and LA17 have some more of a dark and drony atmosphere to them. Still, for pieces of background music, I think that could be a bit more potential to them. If we would have pieces like LA13 and LA15 who are just filled with this sort of appeal of the sound of Moby, we will be talking about an amazing ambient album, and I wouldn't be bothered if it was going for 3 hours or for 10 hours. But still, we were talking about long pieces of just ambient background music. There are other albums that follow a far better example. The ones I can think of are Non-Friendly by the Kerogeri, the massive Soliloquy for Lilith by Nurse with Wound, and even the album Rainbow Mirror by Prurient. While it's not one of my favorite pieces from him, it's definitely a long album that has a lot of great moments and some really huge highlights to it. While we're talking about more dark and more underground and obscure albums, I still think that there is a bit of a darkness and a bit of a moody atmosphere in what Moby tries to portray on Long Ambience 1 and 2, but it's still not enough to keep it as something more captivating rather than just background music. When it goes for a more general and more detailed music experience, you will find so many things that are sort of underwhelming. I would say that I prefer Long Ambients 2 over the first one, but it's not like there is that much of a big difference in between them. It's still sort of a disappointing album from Moby, and if there's going to be a third part, I'm hoping for something more fleshed out with some better ideas that appeal more to the emotional and atmospheric side of Moby. I'm going to give this album a 6 minus out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.